sector. Arnwine's work includes women's rights, immigrant rights, judicial diversity, criminal justice reform, racial profiling, healthcare disparities, and LGBTQ rights. A prominent leader in the civil rights and human rights community, she continues to fight for the preservation of affirmative action and diversity programs. She's received numerous national, regional, and local awards. In 2015, Arnwine received the prestigious Charles Hamilton Houston Medallion Award, along with co-honorees Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She received the Vince Monroe Townsend Jr. Legends Awards and the Women's Lawyers Division Walking the Walk, Women's Lawyers Still Making It Happen, in 2014. Our other guest is Wade Henderson. Wade is a civil rights veteran and serves as a strategic advisor to major corporations, foundations, and nonprofits on matters relating to civil and human rights, diversity, and inclusion. Henderson is the former president of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights and the Leadership Conference on Education Fund. The Leadership Conference is the nation's premier civil and human rights coalition with over 230 national organizations working to build an America as good as its ideals. The Leadership Conference has been involved in the passage and implementation of every major civil rights act from 1957 to the present. Henderson is well known for his expertise on a wide range of civil rights, civil liberties, and human rights issues, and is the author of numerous articles on civil rights and public policy. Henderson was the president of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights from 1996 to 2017. As I begin all of our shows, I try to set the stage for our guests and for our listeners. The timeline of the history of African Americans, I've likened it unto an architect building a building. From 1619 to 1776, I've called it pre-construction, assembling all of the pieces. From 1776 to 1787 to the Bill of Rights to 1861, I call that the construction period. The Declaration of Independence, the writing of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, adding one free and one slave state to the Union, how central the Negro's history is to the construction of America. Then the deconstruction phase, when the states decided over slavery to leave the Union. That laid the foundation for the Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, and it began first Reconstruction. Of course, until the Tilden-Hayes Compromise of 1876, 1877, and then the infamous Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896. That began the period of Jim Crow. From 1896, separate and unequal doctrine, to Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, which overturned the principles laid out in Plessy of separate and unequal to lay the foundation for equal protection under the law. Rosa Parks then sat down on a bus. In 1956, Martin Luther King Jr. came to her rescue, and that laid the foundation for the modern civil rights movement. The 1964 Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, public accommodations legislation, 66, 67, and 68, Roe v. Wade, 1973, all the way up to the Dobbs decision and the retrenchment, if you will, of these rights with the MAGA campaigns and the efforts through these years of resistance to the progress we've made. And that brings us to the extraordinary work of Wade Henderson, of Barbara Arnwine, two of our nation's longest serving champions on the field and in the battle for civil rights. As African Americans, we did not just fight for rights for ourselves. There's no such thing as a Black civil right. Once we implemented the 1964 Civil Rights Act, yes, it granted us our civil rights, but it also granted civil rights to the disabled, to the LGBTQ, to women who had been denied civil rights, to Native Americans, to immigrants. All of us could claim protection under the 1964 Civil Rights Act, largely backed by Brown versus the Board of Education, the Supreme Court interpretation that expanded the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. When we come forward, Wade Henderson and Barbara Arnwine are on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
At least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. Starting Monday, January 6th, KBLA Talk 1580 has a new midday lineup.
I'm excited.
Are you ready for Tavis Smiley, Dr. Cornel West, Jesse Jackson Jr., D.L. Hughley, and E. Quarterly Corte back-to-back?
Oh, my God.
Are you really ready for all this smoke?
I'm ready, brother.
Yes, we still have Dominique DePrima in the mornings and Zoe Williams in the evenings, but middays just got lit on KBLA Talk 1580.
We on fire.
All across America, people are talking about our new midday lineup. Starting Monday, January 6th, our KBLA 1580 app downloads are on fire because everybody's going to be tuning in.
Yes, I love you guys. You are the bomb.
Now would be a good time to hit up SMB at KBLA1580.com if you want folks to hear about your business or brand. That's SMB at KBLA1580.com. It's going up in 2025 on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's going up.
That's what I want.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Here's another great reason to use the United States Postal Service this season. When sending a package, why venture outside? Ship with USPS for a true holiday ride. Want to stay cozy and warm? There's no need to roam with free package pickup and labels printed from home. We have over 600,000 employees always in motion. And before you know it, your gift has delivered emotion. Spread the holiday joy this season with USPS's enhanced network. Learn more at USPS.com/holidayride.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
Slow it down. Get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pegol is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZ.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. Honored to have Barbara Arnwine and Wade Henderson. Barbara, welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Wade, welcome to the show.
It's an honor to be on. Looking forward to this discussion.
Indeed. Attorney Arnwine, share with us where we are, where we've come from, and the context within which we plan a major resistance.
Everybody, sadly, we are in what I call the redemption era number 2. People talk about the Reconstruction, but after Hayes-Tilden, there was nothing but the redemption era. And the redemption era is what we're seeing being repeated here in many, many aspects. Not identical, never, because history's never identical. And we have the power, don't ever forget, to change what history becomes. The narrative is in our hands. The power to make the new, nation that we have to have, the one that's really multiracial, that's really, where there's a democracy that's equal to all, that's within our hands. So where we are right now is that we have an incoming administration that is dedicated 100% to the tenets of racial exclusion. You heard me, racial exclusion. When you were talking about what happened at Harvard with the 50% drop in the entering class, that's racial exclusion, people. They hate our language about inclusion. Well, inclusion's everything. And because if you're excluded from power, you're excluded from advancement, you're excluded from economic progress, you're excluded. And they are absolutely committed. They're anti-DEI. All of this talk that they're talking about how they don't believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's all about excluding people from engagement, involvement in every aspect of American society. If you look at these nominees that he's put forth, they're all committed to a politic of exclusion, racial exclusion, not inclusion. They also are committed very strongly to a politic of white supremacy. I'm sorry, folks, when a president-elect, because he's not president yet, but when a president-elect goes out of his way, he and the vice president-elect, to have Daniel Penny, a killer of a black man, celebrated by bringing him to the Army-Navy game and putting him on national TV. Come on, don't tell me that's not white supremacy. Come on, don't tell me. And
tell them, Barbara.
I'm sick of these folks trying to, make excuses for people. And then he hypocritically gets on, a press conference and talks about how he's angry at Luigi Mangione because he shot the guy in the back. This man that you're celebrating killed a black man purposefully, chokehold him for minutes after minute until he was dead. You're going to celebrate him? Are you kidding me? Folks, this is an era of lies, hypocrisy, and corruption. We're going to see it. Plutocracy, oligarchy, as people talk about, where the rich just is out to get richer and will strip everything they can from the federal government. What are they talking about, Wade? You saw this nonsense today about privatizing. They want to privatize healthcare. They want to privatize everything you could think of because they want other people to make money off of it, including themselves. This whole oligarchy pilgrimage that everybody's making to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. Everybody is wanting their cut because, from Zuckerberg to all of them, they're the same. All they're about is making money. They don't care about child labor laws. They don't care about Social Security being available to everyone. They don't care about healthcare being available to everyone because that doesn't make them any money. What they care about is how to depress the voters, how to depress the workers in our country, getting anti-labor, all of this. Folks, if you're not watching, wake up.
I think that
and stay woke.
I think Barbara Arnwine might have taken the title of Little Warrior from Willie Taplin Barrow in that last oration. God bless her soul. Wade, your thoughts on this hour?
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. First of all, my friend Barbara is 100% correct. Let me just say at the outset how honored I am to be here with you, Jesse, a longtime friend, and especially honored to be here with Barbara as well, because Barbara speaks the truth, and I'm pleased to join both of you. Let me say, in preparation for this program this evening, I was sort of reflecting on your question of where we are. 2024 is the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It was the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that laid the foundation for a freer America as we know it today. I was born during a period of intense racial segregation. I was born here in the nation's capital. I'm in Washington, D.C. And up until 1964, Washington, D.C. was a racially segregated city by law, and it continued by custom for many years after that. So this America, as we know it today, is a relatively new invention. Now, earlier this afternoon, I was on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. And one of the hashtags that was trending was Aunt Jemima.
Wow.
Now, our listeners may remember Aunt Jemima was the Black woman who appeared for many years on the box of pancakes and syrup that was sold commercially. A Black woman born into slavery, but who became the face of the business that she represented. Aunt Jemima was trending with the question, should her picture be restored to the pancake box?
Wow.
Should her picture be restored to the bottle of syrup? And I said, what? I mean, I was taken aback. But the reality is we are facing a repeal of all the protections that we have known that have guaranteed our place in the American system. And this hashtag of Aunt Jemima was just a reflection, a metaphor for where we are. Now, I want to go back for a minute, Jesse, because your timeline was extremely helpful, and I commend you for condensing much of American history into a few statements. The truth is, Black history is American history.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk a bit about the Department of Justice and the Civil Rights Division. I know that's one of our topics tonight. But let me say the Department of Justice was founded in 1870 to protect the interests of Black Americans.
Wow.
We were experiencing unbridled assault.
The entire department.
The entire department.
Not just the Civil Rights Division.
Not just the Civil Rights Division. The Civil Rights Division did not exist until 1957. So let me start by saying the Department of Justice was created to defend the constitutional rights of Black Americans, which had been guaranteed by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. And we were experiencing unbridled assaults on our lives. Lynching became the phenomenon of justice, the preferred phenomenon of justice, and lasted well into the 20th century. As a matter of fact, lasted until the last few years. Black people were still being lynched. So the Department of Justice has a very honorable history. The Civil Rights Division that you alluded to was not created until 1957, the first modern Civil Rights Act. The Leadership Conference, which I was honored to lead for 20 years, helped bring that about. That was 1957. But between 1870 and 1957 and beyond, many things happened to Black people that your condensed history sort of leaves unspecified. Let me say Nicole Hannah Jones, who created the 1619 Project, the Pulitzer Prize-winning 1619 Project. I commend to all of our listeners tonight because it gives you a sense, a real sense of what Black people have experienced during that period of time, 150 years. And it was extraordinary, Jesse, because the truth is our humanity, an effort was made to negate that at every stage of our development. We are among the most successful people this country has ever produced, because the truth is we overcame a barrier of hard-scrapple discrimination and racial animus, racial hatred, unlike anything any other citizen of this country has ever experienced. The fact that we survive to this day is a testament to the willingness of Black people to sacrifice so much for the interests that we hold dear, and it needs to be elevated and respected. Now, what do I feel about today? Well, Barbara summed it up quite, I thought, effectively. The truth is, you mentioned Reconstruction, Jesse, that period that followed the Civil War of the 19th century, 1860 to 1865, when Black people were given some support by the federal government. Of course, countermanded by states that hated that right, primarily in the South, but also the North was no crystal stair for Black people. There were hostilities there as well, and we experienced them. But think about what you haven't documented: the various race riots that have occurred during that period, the lynchings, over 5,000 that occurred during that period, the way in which the NAACP itself was born in 1909 as a result of a series of racial pogroms, racial riots, assaults on Black lives. Black lives mattered even before that phrase was recognized as a descriptive of the circumstance in which we find ourselves. And that history is important because the challenges that we face today, are a reflection of that. You mentioned earlier the fact that Harvard's first-year law school class is down by 50% over the previous year. Well, that is, of course, a result of the Supreme Court's assault on affirmative action. There was a case involving students for fair admission versus Harvard University and versus the University of North Carolina. And that decision was handed down in June of 2023. And that decision prohibited the use of race in college admissions. And it laid the foundation not just to eliminate affirmative action programs in higher education, but it also laid the foundation for the current day attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion that we're seeing in corporations and in cities around the country. That decision did not speak to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it is being used as a justification to eliminate these programs. Here's the irony, Jesse. The University of North Carolina was also one of the suits that was brought to eliminate affirmative action. And the University of North Carolina is the oldest public university in the country. It was built in 1789. It held its first classes in 1795. Black people, skilled artisans and laborers built that university.
Darn straight.
Black tax dollars during the period of our citizenship, during the period of enslavement, of course, our labor is what we contributed in every way and every respect to that university. When we became citizens, our tax dollars were used to subsidize that university in every way. And yet we had no voice in decision-making involving the university, no claim to admission. We were not fully recognized citizens, and we did not have the right to vote in a meaningful way. While it may have existed on paper, the reality, of course, is that we didn't have that right. And for many, many, many years, until the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Black people were largely denied the right to vote. The first Black student was admitted to the University of North Carolina in 1951. So from 1795 until 1951, you didn't have Black students attending the University of North Carolina. Period. The end. Full stop.
Wow.
Race was the barrier, regardless of qualification.
Wow.
And in fact, that university was so determined to prevent Black students from attending, even when the Supreme Court ruled that if you were a state resident, you had a right to apply and be admitted to law school at the University of North Carolina. Rather than allow that to occur, the university and the state legislators created North Carolina Central Law School.
Wow.
So that Black people would have a place to go.
Wade,
Yeah.
let me say, I want you to hold that thought.
Yes.
When we come forward, you are listening to two of the sharpest minds and the most important minds in this era of our struggle for human rights. I'm honored that Barbara Arnwine and Wade Henderson are my special guests. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Luigi Mangione has been indicted for the fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on December 4th in New York City. The Manhattan DA, who was black, announced the indictment Tuesday. Mangione, arrested December 9th in Pennsylvania, faces 20 years to life if convicted of first-degree murder. Durham, North Carolina is investing $1.8 million in federal funds to revitalize the historic black neighborhood known as Haiti. The project aims to boost the local economy and address long-term underinvestment with $10 million planned for future enhancements. Seattle, Washington will pay $319,000 to Anthony Sims, a black delivery driver, to settle a lawsuit over a 2020 traffic stop where police held him at gunpoint and illegally searched his car. A judge found evidence of racial bias and constitutional violations. And if you're an OnStar user, you can track Santa's journey in real time this Christmas Eve, adding some holiday fun for families. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
End of a pursuit in Atwater Village affecting travel on the 2 southbound coming up at the Glendale off-ramp. That ramp is off limits due to this police activity, and traffic is a mess getting away from Verdugo Road. Also, in Griffith Park on the 134 westbound before Forest Lawn, it's a stall. It's blocking middle lanes. Delays here away from San Fernando Road. Plus, and we're going to head out to the drive in Upland. It's a wreck on the 210 eastbound at Mountain. Everything's out of lanes in the center divider, and that's keeping the drive jammed away from Baseline. Lake Forest on the 5 northbound at El Toro Road. A wreck is blocking the 2 middle lanes, and that's slowing the drive down away from Alicia Parkway.
Shop new deal drops now at Lowe's. Right now, get up to 30% off select major appliances and save big this holiday season. Lowe's knows deals. Offer valid 12/12 to 12/18. Cannot be combined with additional discounts. See Lowe's.com for details and qualifying items while supplies last.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
If the NFL regular season was over today, the Rams would be the NFC West champs. The Rams are tied with Seattle for first place at 8-6, but the Rams already have a tiebreaker advantage. The Rams beat Seattle on November 3rd, and they are 3-1 in the division. The Rams are in a good position to win the NFC West. They're at the 4-10 New York Jets on Sunday, then finish up at home against Arizona and Seattle. The Rams will likely have to win the division to make the playoffs. The 3 NFC wildcard spots will go to 2 teams in the NFC North and Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders. The Commanders are 9-5 heading into the final 3 weeks. Barring a collapse, the Commanders should make the playoffs. Just in case you were curious, the Clippers' 144 points against Utah Monday night was not a franchise record. The record is 175 in a double overtime loss to Sacramento in 2023. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drum.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chucky. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Add confidence to every holiday adventure and get it done with a rugged and capable Chevy truck or SUV. Now during Red Tag, get 0% APR financing for 36 months on select Chevy models when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Offer available on all 2025 Equinox and 2024 Equinox EV, Blazer EV, and Silverado EV models. Monthly payment is $27.78 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment is 26.8%. You must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take your retail delivery by 1/2/25.
In California, the use of man-made stone is causing workers to get silicosis. Silicosis is a fatal disease caused by breathing in silica dust from cutting, polishing, or grinding man-made stone. To prevent silicosis, employers must provide their workers proper equipment, including water systems and NIOSH-approved respirators. Stop dusty and deadly practices. Learn more at worksafewithsilica.org. This is a message from Cal OSHA.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide cleans better than the leading competitive free detergent, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues.
Plus, Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do
Let's play something, Grandma.
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and you're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. My special guests are Wade Henderson and Barbara Arnwine, both of whom are two of the most distinguished African-American lawyers, jurists in our struggle for civil rights. Their knowledge is invaluable. I tried my very best to lay out a little timeline at the beginning of the program, but Wade reminded me of the 1619 Project and how many data points I was actually missing. But I'm very grateful for that. Wade, before the break, you were making a very, very important point, and then I want to pitch it to Barbara.
Well, I'll be quick and wrap it up so we can get to Barbara and your questions. And again, history is critically important for all of our listeners, all of us. That is one reason that states like Florida and others are making such a production out of barring the teaching of Black history. Black history, of course, is American history.
Absolutely.
But if you can restrict understanding and learning what occurred previously, you can keep us ignorant about the challenges we face today. And that is something that I think all of us need to underscore. The fact that America only became a democracy in the truest sense in 1965 with the passage of the Voting Rights Act. Even though we had a constitutional amendment guaranteeing our right to vote, there were impediments, government-sponsored and government-ignored impediments that made it impossible to exercise the franchise. So we, for 100 years after the Civil War, were not a democracy, and we did not have that right.
That's right.
Democracy, as we know it, is a relatively new phenomenon. What we are seeing today, as Barbara suggested, is a determined rollback of every progress we have made since the mid-1960s. The Supreme Court is leading the way. You mentioned the attack on affirmative action and the consequences that had. The important point that I was attempting to underscore by mentioning the University of North Carolina is that Black people were excluded from all the benefits of citizenship and bore all of the burdens of enslavement and were not entitled to attend. And extraordinary efforts were undertaken to prevent them from attending. A new law school in the state of North Carolina was created to avoid a Supreme Court decision that mandated the integration of the University of North Carolina's law school. That's where North Carolina Central came from. So, we have seen extraordinary efforts on the part of government, both federal and state, to do all it could to bar us from achieving. Now, one final point. We are, in my view, at the end of what I call the second Reconstruction.
I think that's right.
We had a period of growth and expansion of government rights and supports. And that's what the 1960s up through the present, more or less, helped generate. I mean, of course, we did have mass incarceration, which was created with the 1994 crime bill. We're still living with the consequences of that. That was a parallel to the period in the 1870s where we enjoyed slavery by another name, peonage and conscription. Black people were taken into prisons for the purpose of creating a new cheap labor class to substitute for enslavement. And we bore that barrier, that burden for years. And we continue to do that. Today, there are 4 million American citizens, Jesse, who are denied the right to vote because of felony convictions.
Yes.
And they reside in states that don't allow them to vote. 4 million, even though they are returning citizens who should be given all of their rights.
Absolutely.
So all I'm saying is this. The challenges we face today are real. We do ourselves a disservice if we ignore them or if we attempt to downplay them. This is, of course, not the only challenging period we have faced in our history. But for younger brothers and sisters, for younger African Americans, this is a time of extraordinary challenge. They've not seen anything quite like this in their lifetime. And they are now facing a period of severe retrenchment and compromise on rights that unless they are focused and unless they stand up and respond to that, will be costly and perhaps devastating for their future. So I'll stop there.
Barbara, we have about 3.5 minutes until the break. Please respond to Wade. And I'd like you to also, because we will be coming back after the break, and you will be with me in the next hour, to lay this context as Wade seems to have suggested, that we are coming to the end of Second Reconstruction. Between construction periods, there's this huge period of Jim Crow. Are we looking at some new form of Jim Crow? Barbara Arnwine.
No, I mean, let me be very clear, everybody, that after the Reconstruction period, there was a period called the Redemption era. And most people don't know about it. It's not studied. But that's the era where white oligarchs, the ruling class, decided the most critical thing it could do was to embed into the mentality of white Americans that they were white, that they were superior, that they were different, that blacks were inferior in every respect. And they went crazy because they were upset that they were watching all these new labor unions that were multiracial, biracial, black and whites coming together, poor blacks, poor whites coming together. And they said, no, that can't happen because we can't rule if you have that kind of unity, economic unity. So what they did instead was to, go on millions of dollars of campaigning to teach white people that they were white, that was the most important benefit that they could have in life was their skin. And you heard Trump. What did he do on these last rallies, folks? Did you watch these last rallies during the campaign where he got up and kept talking about his beautiful white skin? Come on, people. You know, what they did during that period was to teach white people that their enemy was not the rich, was not the exploiters, was not those who were corrupt and stealing, from the government, stealing for them, that their enemy was black people. And that's, it was purposeful, folks. I mean, you think that this racial hatred was somehow natural? It was embedded, it was created, and it is fed to this moment. And we need to understand that we're re-entering a redemption period. And what's happening is that right now they are teaching, when you have people campaigning to about black Haitians eating cats and dogs and geese and whatever, why do you think they did that? Come on, people. Come on. Let's get real. You talk about, just a couple 100,000 people possible in one little city in Ohio. Are you kidding me? Springfield? Come on. That was no threat to anybody. That was done because they had to demonize two people, black folks again, and they had to demonize immigrants. Even legal migrants. This is what the Haitians are. They're legal migrants. But their hatred, their need to create an enemy, so people don't ask the fundamental questions. Why are there so little jobs that people can attain in this society right now? Why is there so much wealth inequality in this society? Why can't I advance? Why is the American dream no longer possible for my generation? People don't ask that question. They don't look at the real culprit, which is the ultra greedy, wealthy, super rich oligarchs, billionaires, which shouldn't exist. Let's talk about it, folks. That's what this is about. It's about detracting people away from everything.
When we come forward, Barbara, when we come forward, we are coming back to Barbara Arnwine, who's going to break down this redemptive period for us. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got some exciting guests today, and I'm grateful that they're with us.
To speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do
Let's play something, Grandma.
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be a thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KB.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and welcome to KBLA Talk 1580. Our special guests are attorney Barbara Arnwine and attorney Wade Henderson. Barbara, before the break, you were talking about the redemptive period, the oligarchs, the billionaires, a billionaire president, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, the Department of Doge with Vivek Ramaswamy, another billionaire, Jeff Bezos, There's talk of him proposing eliminating the United States Post Office. A Republican senator is now talking about legislation to end the Department of Education, and other senators are talking about Brown versus the Board of Education is on the table and up next. Please share with us your thoughts about this period of redemption.
Well, most people just don't know it. It's not studied well. And it's not really because the number one driver, how did they do this? How do you inculcate within a whole population of white people that have hated each other? They were killing each other in New Orleans because, the Irish hated the, whatever, the Germans and, all of this stuff. How did you make them into one white people? Newspapers, the press was dominant in creating this whole concept of whiteness and directing anger at Black folks. In 1895, folks, Black women have the first national colored women's conference in Boston in 1895 because there's this national article that has gotten popularity throughout the country demeaning Black women. Every racist trope you heard levied against Kamala Harris, same tropes. Read that article that was written that motivated all those sisters to have that conference in 1895. That's Plessy versus Ferguson era, right?
Absolutely.
We're right on the, we're right on the whole, a threshold of that. I want people to understand that Black folks were so demeaned, these newspapers were so out of control that we had to organize ourselves into resistance. And we're seeing the same thing. You got Elon Musk owning now the most popular form of media that's out there, which is social media. So he owns, X, renamed Twitter X, and all of a sudden that platform is just toxic. It's toxic with anti-Black rhetoric. This is a man who's been sued, right? Sued for racial discrimination, who has, his own reality coming out of, South Africa, and just, read some stuff about their family. It's very fascinating. All I want to say, folks, is that you got to understand that history doesn't repeat itself, but mankind always does, says Voltaire. Well, mankind just follows, what patterns worked before. How were we able to divide and conquer? How do we do this? How do we stay in power? How do we deal with the fact that we want to own all the wealth in the world and leave the poor little 90% with virtually nothing while we are just running around trying to make billions? Come on, folks, did you know that since Trump was elected, and as Wade said so brilliantly, that he was elected with a lot of the money of Elon Musk. How much money did Elon Musk make in the first 20-something days? Try $70 million, folks, in additional wealth. And it wasn't just him. Bezos, all of them. That's why they love this man.
Barbara,
they don't care about us.
I'm really appreciative of this history, and I want to probe it a little bit more with you in this moment. We have about 6 minutes before the break. My question is, on the one hand, we're celebrating 60 Blacks in Congress. More Blacks than we had during First Reconstruction, the pinnacle of Second Reconstruction, 60 Blacks in Congress, 2 women, Raphael Warnock on the Democratic side, and African Americans in the United States Senate. So we're celebrating over here. We celebrated at the end of First Reconstruction as well, right? Tell us about the Voting Rights Act, and is it jeopardized in this context as well? And I'd like to pitch it to Wade. We've got about 5 minutes left in this portion of the program, but of course, on the other side of the hour, we're going to pick right up right here. Barbara?
Yes. Well, first of all, let me just quickly on the redemption side. That's when the Daughters of the Confederacy, all of this stuff rises up. This is also when Woodrow Wilson, who was running around building the League of Nations so there could be peace among the world leaders. This man at the same time was raging war on Black folks. His wife literally was going into the workforce in Washington, D.C. to see where there was integration. And if she found it, she made it segregated again. You know, people just don't understand. Presidents have incredible, range. And it was President Woodrow Wilson who led a lot of this madness to really re-enslave us in a whole different way, to make Jim Crow become the law of the land. So I just think that we need to understand that. The Voting Rights Act, we fought like heck all our lives, all our time here in this country for our right to vote. Don't think it only started in 1870 after the Civil War. Our fight was from the minute we put our feet landed in Jamestown, 1619. But even before then, if you go back into Florida, into St. Augustine, look at that whole history of Fort Mose and all the blacks there. You gotta, there's so much history for us to know and understand. But what I do want us to know is that the Voting Rights Act was something that Black people fought for forever. We had the 15th Amendment. They made that a nullity. It's been subservient in legal jurisprudence to the 14th Amendment for the last, several decades. At least of my practice, it's been, a dominant theme since, since the Croson case, where the 14th Amendment just became dominant. And then in Shaw versus Reno, they said that the 15th Amendment was, subservient to the 14th Amendment, in essence. So I just think people need to understand that right now, and I'm going to stop here. Right now, there are 23 MAGA state attorney generals. They have been in the last 4 years attacking every single civil rights legal platform, every single civil rights legal framework. They have been attacking the Voting Rights Act of 1965, disability rights. They have been attacking everything about the Voting Rights Act. And you haven't been following this, you need to, people, because they're using your tax dollars. Who are these 23? They are the AGs of Florida, Georgia, come on now, Alabama, Texas. Black folks, right? In all of these states in huge numbers. Mississippi, come on now, Louisiana. Let's talk about who these people are and how it affects us. And they are, to this moment, as we're talking, litigating cases all over the country. They're trying to undo the environmental justice regulations even. They're trying to undo any kind of justice inclusionary policy that exists in this country. They are a clear and present danger. And if Black folks don't, and brown folks and Native Americans don't combine to put these people out of office, then we are missing the boat. And we are making a mistake. And I'm so glad that it's time for us to really talk, because a lot's been hidden under the cover. Because people are assuming that things are good because they had Biden in the office, and all this mess has been going on while Biden was in office. So let's not get confused, people.
We have about 1 minute before the break, and I want to just say that while these monumental achievements have been accomplished through the blood, sweat, and tears of really serious African American people who have borne the burden of oppression for centuries, as we've advanced the ideas of democracy.
Yes.
To Wade's point, we weren't always a democracy. We've been the modern democracy since about 1965. We've experienced about 45 or 50 years of democracy. But the fact still remains that we are looking at a return to an era where our rights are being threatened. It's not necessarily a period where we just celebrate that we have 60 Blacks in Congress or 2 new African-American women. Just like in First Reconstruction, we could be delivering a Phoenix-like speech saying that we're out of here. When we come forward after the top of the hour, Wade Henderson is going to take us down that Voting Rights Act and tell us what's at stake.
Okay.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.